Valerie Nightingale, and I am the program officer for the Valley Community Foundation. And I am going to be walking through the competitive grant eligibility with you for this process. Applicants must be tax exempt organizations under Section 501c3 or any applicable section of the Internal Revenue Code, or have a fiscal sponsor. Applicants must provide services in at least one town of the 20-town region, which is listed in the map on the slide. Applicants must adhere to a policy of non-discrimination, and applicants who are previous recipients of a grant within the past 3 years must have submitted all of the required reports. Projects that do not generally receive consideration include religious activities, endowment campaigns, travel, previously incurred debt, and funding deficit. Requests for capital projects such as building, equipment, vehicles, and other depreciable items will be accepted only as part of the small grant program and may include requests that are related to organizations managing the impact of COVID-19. Applicants who are past grantees must be in compliance with all grant reporting requirements.
So I'm going to go over what we call our guiding principles for grant making, our guiding principles for nonprofits. You will not see these directly reflected in any question on any application, but they are the lens through which we look at all of our grant making. So we ask that you keep them in mind as you're crafting your answers, because there are things that we're going to be looking for. We look for an organization's vision in the community. Does your organization have clear goals and objectives for what you're trying to do, what your impact is going to be? And has that been informed by a planning process that includes input by stakeholders with lived experience? Are you involving the people you serve in your planning process? We're hoping that you will be doing that. We're looking for the social and structural determinants of equity. How is your work, your mission, contributing to improving health access and quality, education access and quality, basic needs, social and community context, economic stability, or neighborhood and built environment? How are you contributing to the social and structural determinants of equity? Is your organization accountable? Do you have an ongoing way to evaluate the impact of your work on the people that it serves and the community that it serves? What is your vision for the organization? In addition to your vision for program impact, what goals and objectives do you have for how to maintain or improve your governance, your management, and operations of the organization? Again, which has been informed by a planning process. Do you have a strategic plan? Is this grant consistent with that plan? Are you following the guidelines of your strategic plan? Does your organization have a culture, policies, and procedures that contribute to diversity, equity, and inclusion? Do members of your board and staff reflect the diversity of the community that you serve? And what is the vitality of your organization? Do you have sound practices for financial management, which include a lens for sustainability in the planning? What will you do when the money that we've granted runs out? Is there a sustainability for your organization? Do you have the next phase of your organization planned? So today we're going to talk about a bunch of different grant making processes. There may be one or more that are right for you, but the things you want to keep in mind as you're going through these processes. Some of them have deadlines and some of them are rolling applications. Are you ready to apply now? Are you going to meet the deadline, or do you need to wait and come in for a rolling process? What are the eligibility criteria? Some have different requirements for those who can apply. Listen closely to make sure you're the type and size of organization that fits into the process that you're thinking about. What level of funding do you need? As the grant award size goes up, so does the level of competition. So apply for what you need. If you can achieve your goals with a smaller grant, consider a process that might give you a faster and more favorable answer. What type of funding do you need? Responsive process is all general operating support, which is totally flexible funding. Small grants can come in for capacity building, general operating, or program. Understand what those differences are and which type is right for you. When do you need the funding? Along with application deadlines, there are turnaround times that are different for different grant awards. So listen carefully for when the awards will be made. How quickly do you need the funds? How quickly do you need an answer? Remember, previously incurred expenses cannot be charged to grants, so think ahead. If you're thinking about a summer program and you're coming in for a responsive grant, and that grant will not be made until the end of July, you're going to be halfway through your program and you will not be able to book the expenses from June and July to that grant. It will be too late. So think ahead about when you need the grant in your hand. And is it 1 year or multi-year? If you're just launching a new planning process, you may not be ready for a multi-year application. You may not be able to think that far ahead. But if you would like the stability and ability to plan that a multi-year application can afford you, then think about a responsive grant. So think about those things as we go through the different processes. So here are a list of grants that are available both to New Haven or Greater New Haven based organizations and Valley organizations. Our responsive grants, this is our one main big process. It's the multi-year process. The applications are due February 24th at 5 p.m. Our system shuts down at 5:01. You cannot get an extension. You cannot come in late. So do plan ahead for the February 24th at 5 p.m. deadline. Animal shelter grants are an ongoing process. The Quinnipiac River Fund, you will see the deadline has passed, but if you do work that contributes to the access and maintenance of the Quinnipiac River watershed, please think about that for next year. The BIPOC cohort for neighborhood for leadership, the BIPOC cohort for leadership applications open on April 24th and they are due June 6th. We'll talk more about that. And the neighborhood leadership program, again, that is for people who live, people, not organizations, but people who have great ideas and passion, who would like to have some leadership training and some seed money to start their program. And those are for people that live in New Haven, North Haven, Hamden, West Haven, and East Haven. The neighborhood leadership program. Again, the deadline January 19th, we've missed it for this year, but it happens every year. We also have, these are the grants that are available to only Greater New Haven organizations. Our small grant process, which is an ongoing application. We do keep that application open until we run out of funds. We typically do run out of funds by the end of the year. We don't like to have money left over, so we try to spend it all. So if you have an opportunity in mind, please apply as soon as you possibly can. Sponsorships, also an ongoing application, same story. If you know that you have a fundraiser coming up in November and you've set the date, please apply as soon as you can. The Racial Equity and Creative Healing Through the Arts grants, the applications open on February 1st and they close on May 2nd. And the Consultant Support Program is an ongoing program where you can get just a thought partner, very small intervention by an expert to work with you on a particular project. So the nonprofit animal shelter grants, those are for grants to organizations, independent 501c3 organizations, not municipal entities who give shelter to animals. It can be for a new or existing program. It can be for organizational capacity building or capital expenses or program expenses. And those are made possible by the Lillian and Henry Konopacki Fund here at the Community Foundation. You can apply for up to $7,500. Generally, the grants average between $3,000 and $5,000. It's a rolling process. Please apply at any time. We talked about the Quinnipiac River grant funds. Deadline has passed for this year, but watch out for next year if you're an organization that might participate in that. The Neighborhood Leadership Program, New Haven, West Haven, East Haven, Hamden, demonstrated commitment to making a positive difference through resident engagement. This helps you build skills. It's 5 months of leadership training with a seed money to launch your program. The deadline for this year has passed. Keep it in mind for next year. You do not have to be an organization, a 501c3 to do that. The BIPOC cohort for leadership. This is for people of color who are middle management level in currently employed by nonprofits. It's a 2-year training program for those middle management people who aspire to be executive directors or CEOs of nonprofits. This is not for founder-led organizations to strengthen the organization. This is for mobility within the nonprofit sector. We are building a pipeline of leaders who are people of color who can take the big chair of those organizations as existing executive directors are retiring more and more. The application itself is focused on the leader, not on the organization that applies. It is the leader that applies, but there is a 2-year grant that goes to the organization that employs the person. It's a $15,000 grant for 2 years. We're looking for folks who are committed to nonprofit service. We're looking for folks who are committed to staying in the greater New Haven area and the Valley. So we're looking for people who have the qualities and aspirations to be a leader in this community. And grants for racial equity and creative healing through the arts. These are grants that will support creative and equitable recovery in our region. They are for arts organizations and organizations with a history of arts programming. So if you're just moving into the arts world, this is not for you. This is for established organizations that have a history in arts, or for individual artists. We have secured a fiscal sponsor who will work with individual artists. So if you are an artist collective or an individual artist who wants to work in this area, this could be a program for you. We're looking for projects that break down racism, support learning for youth, and provide opportunities for collective mourning, comfort, and healing and connection during this time when we're all healing from COVID and from the effects of racism. The applications are open on February 1st. The first stage is a simple Google Doc that goes to the Arts Council of Greater New Haven. They have assembled a panel of artists, arts patrons, and arts administrators who are the review panel that make the funding decisions. They will take a look at the applications that come in on this Google Doc. All applications are due by May 2nd. After May 2nd, they will start to review those applications. Depending on the volume of applications that come in, they'll have their decisions made by June or July. The grants are between $5,000 and $20,000 per year for 2 years. And on top of that, there's administration money available to organizations. The New Haven Small Grants Program. So this does not have to be a new program. It can be an existing program, or it can be a new program. It is 1-year support only. There are 3 different types of applications. General operating support. General operating support is totally flexible. You just tell us what you do, tell us what your mission is, and that you are going to try to fulfill that for the next year. And that's the core of that application. Project or program application is specific to one program or project that the organization operates. We need a project or program budget for that, and helps us understand what that one project or program will achieve. And our capacity building we define as short-term infusion of resources for long-term infrastructure improvement. So if you're buying some equipment that'll last for a long time, or fitting up a room that will be able to program space, or bringing in a consultant to do some training or help you develop something, that's capacity building. If you are hiring staff to expand your program to serve more people, that's not capacity building. Staff time is a long-term expense. It's not a one-time expense, so that's not capacity building. That would be general operating support. So figure out where you fit in. As I said, it's 1 year only. It's up to $15,000, and the applications are rolling until we run out of funds. So apply as soon as you can. It's about a 6 to 8 week turnaround on an application, depending on the volume that we're handling. And to get an application, you'd have to be in touch with Denise Canning. Denise will help you decide that you're coming in for the right application.
I'm going to talk now about our joint consultant support program that we administer. Jackie, Stephanie, and I are the contact people. This is for short-term project work for building capacity, including work in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Nonprofit organizations serving both Greater New Haven or the Valley are able to apply. They are able to apply for discrete projects This funding should not be used as part of a larger engagement with a consultant. For instance, we will not pay the first $1,000 towards a $10,000 strategic plan. However, if there's something very specific that your organization needs, certainly feel free to come to us for consultant support. The consultant time and or out-of-pocket expenses are going to be covered. You are eligible to come in for one time during 2022. If you did come in already in 2021 and want to come back for a different project in 2022, feel free to do so. You may choose for a list from a list of vetted consultants that we have put together, or you can engage with your own consultant who agrees to work for an hourly rate not to exceed $125 an hour. If your consultant is going to charge you more than $125 an hour, you can certainly have conversation with Jackie and I and Stephanie about whether or not we would be able to consider that consultant working with you. However, there is a very limited amount of funding to be able to be used for this particular program. And we would want to make sure that you're just aware of that. The grant award through the consultant support program will not impact any eligibility for any other grants that you are applying for from either the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven or the Valley Community Foundation. And I just want to make sure that we're not having any questions in the chat or in the Q&A before we move on. All set?
There are no questions at this time.
Thanks, Stephanie. So for sponsorships for Greater New Haven-based organizations, these are for one-day events. They can be either virtual or in-person fundraising events, festivals, affairs. They are not for conferences or multi-day programs. We are very understanding of the fact that many events have been shifted over to virtual because of COVID-19, so we would consider supporting that work as well. They are typically for neighborhood events to support work that is being out in the community, up to $2,500, and there is a rolling application available for these events. There is a 4-week turnaround time, and we really want to make sure that you are being very planful so that you're not coming to us, 1 week or 2 weeks right before you're having your event. Because it takes a while for it to get through the processing queue, and applications are available on the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven's website. Here's a slide that shows what many of you have probably already seen if you have applied for a grant from either the Community Foundation or the Valley Foundation. It is our login screen for online applications. It is through the Blackbaud grant making system. And if you have not applied to either of us since July 1st of 2019, you will need to create a new account and a new password. Your existing account and password are no longer active. Applications are posted on our respective websites, either the Valley Community Foundation website or the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven website. Applications are accessible by clicking on the application link, and organizations must complete an online application for consideration in any of the grant processes that have been described. There is an eligibility quiz to make sure that you are eligible to complete an application and to request funding from us.
And we're going on to questions. I only see one that's in the chat. Does the consultant support program have a financial cap? Yes, it does. We generally will invest about $2,000 in a project. But again, as Valerie said, this is not to say my strategic plan is going to cost 10. I'm going to cobble together 2,000 from the small grant, from the consultant support program, and $5,000 from the small grant program to achieve my my strategic plan. It's not like that. It's supposed to be a discrete, distinct $2,000 ought to cover it. And many of the projects are less than $2,000. Keep in mind that there are 1,200 nonprofits in our service area. Lots of them are asking for support, so we try to spread that as far as we can. But the general sort of rule of thumb is not to exceed $2,000 in a request. But again, it's not a grant to the organization. You apply for a project with a consultant. If you have the consultant's name, you let us know who that is. If you're looking for a consultant, we can send you a list and make recommendations for you. We engage the consultant directly. We pay the consultant directly. We do not make a grant to your organization. It is not a grant program. So it operates a little bit differently than all the other things that we're talking about today. And we try to make it go as far as we can by really honing in on the things that can support an organization, being able to answer questions that you can't answer for yourself. Are there any other questions, Steph?
No, it doesn't look like there are any other questions at this time.
Okay. Then we're going to go over to the resource slide.
Thanks, Jackie. So as you can see, this is a team effort. We are here and ready and able to answer as many questions as you may have once you leave this webinar and start going out and putting together one of the applications we've described. As you can see, for general questions, Sarah Fabish is in charge of all of our general questions. But as I'm sure you can imagine, she gets quite a lot of requests. So just keep that in mind, we are all kind of applicable and eligible to answer any general questions that you have. So feel free to tackle that with any of us. Denise Canning can provide technical support for your online application. Jackie is available not only for general questions, but for the arts grants, for the BIPOC cohort, the consultant support program. I am ready to answer any questions that anybody has about the Valley grants processes, general questions, and the consultant support program. Kara Strong is available and would be absolutely willing to be able to bounce ideas off of outcomes and reporting and evaluation questions. And Stephanie is truly our go-to person for GiveGreater.org questions, as well as the consultant support program too. So feel free, we are here, we are ready to help. And we know that the February dates are right around the corner for both the GiveGreater profile as well as the completion of the general operating support grant, the responsive grant. So feel free to reach out to us if there is any specific need that you have.
I don't see any questions coming in. We will be here for the next 3 or 4 minutes. If there's something in the chat. So if we have any questions, we can entertain those. If not, thank you for joining us this morning. We're very happy that many stayed with us till the very end. Don't hesitate to reach out if you need us. Reach out by email. We are all working remotely still. So we ask that you make that first line of questioning by email, and that's the easiest way to reach us. Thanks and good luck in your grant applications.